Well, welcome to the Worcester School Committee meeting. Nice, bright and early. Well, we'll start with the roll call. Roll call.
Here. Here.
Member Johnson?
Here.
Member McCullough?
Here.
Member Mailman?
Here.
Member Kamara?
Here.
And Mayor Petty.
Here. So the motion is go into the executive session. We will return to open session after the executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, which I do, regarding successful contract negotiations regarding Massachusetts Laborers District Council forming on behalf of the Worcester Public Service Employees Union 272 of the Laborers International Union of North America, AFL-CIO, Educational Secretaries. Also for Educational Association of Worcester Parent Liaisons. Also for Educational Association of Worcester ESL Tutors. Also for Education Association of Worcester Therapy Assistance Unit. Also on Massachusetts Nurses Association on behalf of the Worcester School Nurses. Also for action, we have an action grievance, alternative stipend, Academic Center for Transition. And that's grievance number 22/23-19. And that's it. So we'll do a roll call to go into executive session. We will come back to open session after the executive session. A roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Okay, we'll go into executive session now.
Recording in progress.
Clancy?
Here.
Member Kamara? Member Kamara? Yeah, I know.
You're on mute.
Member McCullough?
Here.
Mayor Petty?
Here. Okay, we have,
I'm here.
okay.
Thank you.
Consider approve the minutes of the school committee meeting of May 18th, 2023. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay, report the superintendent from here to anywhere, together 2022-23 superintendent goals overview. Dr. Monterez?
Do the chair.
Member Johnson?
Do we have to do the executive?
Oh, thank you, I forgot. Before we do that, pursuant to action taken in executive session was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council for on behalf of the Worcester Public School Employees Local Union 272 of the Laborers International Union of North America, AFL-CIO, Educational Secretaries for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee and EAW of Worcester, parent liaisons for the period September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman? Yes. Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Pursuant to action taken in executive session was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee, EAW of Worcester, parent liaisons for July 1st, 23 through June 3rd, 2026. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes, pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee, EAW, ESL tutors for the period September 2020 through August 31st of 2023. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara? Member McCullough?
Molly, is that it?
I said yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Mayor Petty?
Yes. Which one was that, the tutors?
It was ESL tutors.
Okay, we are on pursuant to action taken in executive session was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee, EAW Therapy Assistance for the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Worcester School Committee and the Massachusetts Nurses Association on behalf of the Worcester School Nurses for the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. So we can collectively take this on a reconsideration, so the first vote was able to go and be able to take the reconsideration vote. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. So take all of these and we just vote on collectively for reconsideration. Roll call.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
No.
Vice Chair Johnson?
No.
Member Mailman?
No.
Member Clancy?
No.
Member Kamara?
No.
Member McCullough?
No.
And Mayor Petty?
No. Okay. Well done. The next item is the superintendent's goals overview. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So we can get this presentation up. So this is my opportunity to talk through the work that has happened this school year as it relates to the goals that were set by the school committee and myself, actually in January of 2023. So it's kind of this self-reflection / self-evaluation. See if this is going to work. There we go. So as a reminder, these are the goals that we established together, and the goals come from really two avenues, if you will. The first one is the listening and learning tour that I started when I came into the district and finished up in December, brought those themes to you. And as part of the themes that emerged, really there was a lot of need and opportunity to shift the district. The way it was described to me by many people in different ways was that we were a district that had schools in it, so lots of different schools in our district, but not a school district that is aligned with each other. So a district of schools rather than a school district. And so there was a lack of coherence. And in a large district such as Worcester, it's essential that we have coherence across all of our schools so that all of our children have opportunities to achieve. Some themes that came out of these challenging, this idea of being a district of schools was, where are we going as a district? What is the priority? Do schools know that priority? Over time, communication at the district office had really broken down, and there were silos that emerged, and that's very common in a large organization. If communication is not strong and if there's not a clear priority for a large organization, then people put their heads down and they get their work done and silos emerge. And so that does not help a school district for all children to achieve. So how do you address silos in a large organization? You create opportunities for collaborative work. You develop common language. You create a team culture, and you develop written systems. And that's where these goals and this evidence comes from. This need for us to have clarity around where we're going, this need to have documents written, not in somebody's memory, but actually written down so that people can refer back to them, and we develop common language. and then we can continuously improve upon that. So that's where these goals came from, in conjunction with the way that the Massachusetts Model Superintendent Evaluation System is set up, which outlines that we are to have 3 goals, one for the district, one for students, and one that's professional, and then a minimum of 2 pieces of evidence. Well, actually, a minimum of a piece of evidence in each of the goals, but we needed more than just one piece of evidence to show how we were going to really start to move the district and make it a school district, bring it back to that state, rather than a district of schools. So I'm not going to read the goals to you, but you see that I was to attain these by June 30th, which is actually today, and I'll talk through some of them this morning. We did, as part of the process of developing these guiding documents, the team made some slight adjustments, and that's really important as a leader, to allow those who are really digging into the work and doing it to have their voices represented. So some of the adjustments in terms of evidence, so that I just make a connection for you. Under the district goals, that was really a lot of work around collaboratively developing various handbooks and guiding documents. And the evidence was, first we call it Portrait of a Graduate. Well, we've shifted that. And so now we're referring to it as Vision of a Learner. The committee received overview on Vision of the Learner in April. So throughout this presentation, I will refer to it as Vision of a Learner, and that's what you have in the documentation. Instead of calling it a Student Wellness and Support Handbook, we shifted that language, and now it is the WPS Health and Wellness Roadmap. We realize that there are many different components, and so we have a separate handbook, but those are the things we already have in place. I didn't include that in my documentation. Instead, what I provided for you is this roadmap. Where do we want our schools to go? Where do we want the district to go over 3 years? The details of that will then be defined with a team next school year, and then we'll constantly evolve that. But it gives you an idea of where we're going in the very important area of health and wellness, which is a priority for this committee. Family and community engagement framework, no change in language on that one. That is the piece of evidence, though, that I also submitted for this goal. So the 3 pieces of evidence that I submitted is the vision of the learner, of a learner, with the SPARK plan, which is kind of an added addendum to it. The Worcester Public Schools Health and Wellness Roadmap, and then finally, family and community engagement. Under the student goal, which is for this school year, it really was to get data in place and kind of tools in place, again, to really help establish and strengthen learning environments that are inclusive. And really hear the voices of all, but also give guidance for my leaders on their evaluation process. So the evidence I submitted on this one was the Superintendent Student Advisory Council policy recommendations. You'll see pictures of evidence that the students actually gave input to some policies, like uniform policy and homework policy, and that was just a great process. We really elevated their voices. And then did change the language on the evidence around, initially it was going to be called the Instructional Supervision Guidebook. What was submitted to you was the Supervision and Evaluation Guidebook. What was really important was to get in one location all the different components that make up the evaluation process for our educators. So I'll talk further on that. The last piece of evidence that I submitted did not change. This was for the professional goal. It's my participation in the new superintendent induction program. As a requirement, I needed to submit my entry plan of findings. I did that for you over a couple of committee meetings, finalizing in January. So that's just some change in language. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Let me go through just high level the components of a vision of a learner. So, the vision of a learner is really now the cornerstone of the future of Worcester Public Schools. We did get feedback and input from staff, principals, students, and families on the vision of a learner, and this really starts to help us shape a shared educational vision. The plan, the vision of a learner and the Spark implementation plan really start to give us an idea on how we plan on implementing the vision of a learner. It is complex. It's not something that's going to happen over 1 year. It is something that we will continuously improve upon and go deeper in the system with. It does show that we are phasing this in, because when you lead change in a large organization such as ours, this is not something that you do to people, you do it with them, and you need to phase it in over time. And so we're starting with our Spark teachers, who said these are like our early adopters. They want to be a part of this. They want to really help us figure out what this looks like in practice. So they will get professional learning this school year, and they're going to go faster than everyone else. They, as well as the educators at Wauwikis Road Elementary School. So that becomes our initial approach to really operationalizing vision of a learner, and we're going to do it with them, not to them. The vision of a learner also allows us to utilize improvement science. So we start small, we monitor how things are going, we make adjustments before we take it to a larger body. And so we're very excited about where this is going to take our district. Cabinet just returned from some time in Washington, D.C. at a conference that is focused on future-driven education and future-ready schools. And we've got some really great opportunities to take Worcester to the next level. So that's just a high-level overview of Vision of a Learner, Spark implementation. Vision of a Learner is where we want every child to be upon graduation. It is not something that will happen over 1 year. It will happen over time, but we've got a plan now, or we've got at least a vision of where we want to go, so that our district becomes a school district rather than a district of schools, and the Spark implementation plan is our starting point. The next piece of data that was submitted, and again, this is all linked to the district goals, is the Worcester Public Schools Health and Wellness Roadmap. This also provides clarity of direction on health and wellness of our youth and staff. We know that this is a priority for this committee and for our larger Worcester Public School community, both the community of Worcester on a greater scale and those who work in our schools and our parents. So this roadmap provides direction on where we're going, and it allows for some detours and stops along the way as things may alter and change. That visual that's in front of you, or that's on that slide, that's actually comes from the, oh goodness, I'm going to have to test myself on this acronym, ACSA, Association of Curriculum and Supervision's Development. No, I'm not correct on it, but it is a national organization that talks about, that has a framework for the whole school, whole child, whole community wellness plan, or wellness framework. So that's what this group of individuals used as their guide to develop this roadmap, as well as the Center for Disease Control framework. So it was collaboratively developed, and it really brings those principles together. It does also include a phased approach to leading change, so it's a 3-year approach to this. Again, we are not dictating what's going to happen at each and every school, because each school is different in their starting point. But what we are saying is, by the end of 3 years, this is what we want to see in all of these areas as it relates to health and wellness. This will be very helpful to providing common language for our counselors, our newly approved deans that will be at our high schools, our climate and culture teams, because again, we have not had that common language, and so we've had lots of pockets of excellence that are going on in the district in this area of health and wellness, but not a coordinated effort. So that's the goal here. Collaboratively developed, and really will help to set the roadmap for climate and culture systems development for our district. So we're excited on where this will come, where it'll take us. And as I stated, there is an accompanying handbook that codifies what we already have in place for health and well-being, because we've also learned. I'm not submitting that as my goals, or as my evidence, but we have a lot of great things going on in the district. Not everyone knows about them. So now we've got them in one handbook that people can then refer to as they improve upon where they're going to be taking their individual schools and what we do as a collective district. Family and community engagement framework. I'm really excited to speak about this because this is, from what I believe, is the first family and community engagement framework for the district. A framework is not meant to have, it's not the plan. It is kind of like the skeleton, right? It's the conceptual structure on what you put in place, and then the schools will add the meat to that plan. So the framework itself ensures culturally and linguistically engagement practices at our schools. This committee took a very bold step in hiring some new positions for family and community engagement because it is so important to you. Just as a reminder, the positions are the directors of family and community engagement. One, we repurposed some funding, so we're able to hire two instead of, and without a kind of pull on the budget, if we will, but also to have wraparound coordinators now at each one of our schools, which will be essential in moving this work forward, working with our family and community engagement directors and the school setting. This framework provides clarity for what I like to refer to as authentic engagement. Sometimes we think engagement is just bringing people together or just asking them, what do you think about this product? And then check the box, we're done, we engage them. But people don't feel like their voices were heard. And sometimes we're not clear on how to do that. So this framework starts to give some ideas around what does authentic engagement look like. It's going to support welcoming learning environments for all of our families. It was developed from an asset-based lens because our families have so much to offer, and we need to see the strengths of our families, and it'll provide direction for systems development. Again, it doesn't tell our schools, start here, do this, do that. Instead, this is what authentic engagement looks like at a school site. Here are the three buckets of it, and we will work with you, school leaders, and your school community to bring that to fruition. So that is the family and community engagement. Think about it, the framework, as giving guardrails or parameters to the schools so that they know how to do this work. And we'll do it with them, developing the implementation plans with the schools wherever they're at. Superintendent Student Advisory Council. So this was me being silly. No, just taking a selfie with my students. The very first time I brought them together at Burncoat High School, which was a great opportunity just to meet with them. And I'll have to give a shout out to Burncoat because they had their dance team and their band and their fine arts. So they are going to do that kind of stuff. So Superintendent Student Advisory Council was really the highlight of my year in so many ways. We received policy recommendations from these really just brilliant scholars, and they provided us with input again on uniform policy. We asked them about restroom usage. They were very honest with us and said, why do you keep asking us about this? It's not that big of a deal, which was really good for us to know as the adults, because sometimes as the adults we think things are bigger than what the children say they are. But they really gave us some great input. So this advisory committee shows our commitment to inclusionary practices. It shows the commitment to include outreach to those who we serve. Ensuring stakeholder engagement and feedback. It shows that we will continue to engage people in decisions that impact them, and who better than the youth that we serve. And it starts to nurture leadership at all levels. The team was so inspired by what we heard from our youth that next year we are going to also start a middle school advisory. We won't meet quite as frequently. We'll meet quarterly with them. But we're looking forward to that. And then we're going to continue to work with our schools to have a model that they can put in place, especially at our secondary schools. That is very similar to that of the Superintendent Student Advisory. The next piece of data that was submitted or evidence was the Supervision and Evaluation Guidebook. So this is really a necessary tool for our school leaders. The development of this has provided so much clarity to our administrators. And just an aside, all of these documents we've already given to our administrators their last day that we were with them before they went off for some much-needed summer break. And I heard from the team that they're just so thankful to have these tools. So it's a great place. So this provides great place to be, I'm going to say, as we go into the summer months. It's a tool for the school leaders, as I said. It really clarifies timelines and expectations. This school year, there have been quite a few grievances at all different levels because we didn't meet timelines as evaluators, and that's part of our responsibility to the organizations, right, the collective bargaining agreements. And I never believe that someone doesn't meet a timeline because they don't want to. I really think it's because we haven't been clear and given them something easy to look at. So this brings it all together in one place. It streamlines processes for our leaders. It ensures effective and timely communication between the evaluator and the evaluatee, leading to strengthened relationships, camaraderie, and rapport with staff, because when people know what to expect, and that builds trust amongst the individuals that are being evaluated and the ones who are providing the evaluation. And then finally, it provides common language and alignment to an instructional framework. So happy to have this in place. Doesn't seem like it's such a big deal, but it is a huge deal for the overall culture of our schools and our district, that everybody knows how they will be evaluated and when. Last but not least is the superintendent entry plan findings. This, again, is part of the listening and learning tour, and it demonstrates a commitment to high expectations for all. The meetings were planned. The team did a great job. If you'll recall, we brought in a digital platform that allowed the members who were part of the listening and learning to engage with each other in the language that works for them, and that was called Thought Exchange. And so it really led to some authentic engagement. It was thoughtful, and the conversations were very productive to help support where Worcester Public Schools is going. It really ensured a commitment to access, opportunity, and equity, and not only did it ensure it, but it demonstrated that, and it guaranteed that there was intentional, engaging leadership practices that I will continue to carry through, and the team is also committed to that. And when I say team, it is the cabinet, as well as we're going to be supporting our principals on how do you also do this at the school level to really have this engaging and commitment to access, opportunity, and equity. Through the conversations, we just learned a whole lot about what our community is looking for. So those are the pieces of evidence that I've submitted in my entry plan. I do want to just kind of plant a little seed on where I do believe we need to go as a district moving forward. So this is a visual that we pulled together after speaking with lots of different individuals at the district level, and this is what I think. What do you all think about this? I'm going to start from the center, all right? So the vision of a learner is our cornerstone, right? This is where we're going. If this is what we're saying, every child upon graduation will be able to do, the skills and dispositions, then what does that mean for us as the adults? What do we need to do in terms of the development that we need? And so what we came to is there are 3 areas that need work and we need to keep working on around mindset. So the 3 areas are to build capacity. Our job as leaders is to build the capacity of those we lead. That's a mindset. So these tools help to build that capacity, right? It's that common language. It's these structures to help support people rising to that next level. And what I shared with my principals just recently that I heard someone else state, and I don't know if I scared them, but it's really what we're going to get them ready to be, is we want them to be ready to be future superintendents. That's our goal. And we want to build that capacity in them so that they can do that. Whether they choose to do that or not, they are leading the most important places in our organization. That is the school. That's where the children are at. So they need to have those tools, that skill, that knowledge, and they need that mindset. So building capacity is a big mindset that we'll be moving, that we've been doing, but now we're going to take it down to that school level into next school year. Authentic engagement is another mindset. How do we authentically engage those that we work with? How do we use data, both qualitative and quantitative, to take us to the next level? What does that look like? That's a mindset. We don't do this from a punitive place. We're constantly growing. And then finally, the mindset of a sense of belonging. This has been something that we've been talking about since I think actually when I started working here in Worcester Public Schools and even before, that we want our schools to be a place where people feel like they are part of the work. The work is not being done to them. So if you're a parent, that means when you walk in, you are welcomed, you are greeted, we're happy to see you, and we want to problem solve with you, and we want to learn from you. If you're an educator, that your voice is important to at the table. And of course, our scholars. So this is where the mindset that I see us going, moving into the future. And then there's different parts of systems development. The top part is the human systems. We have to develop leadership, right? We cannot assume that, that everybody knows exactly what to do in very difficult situations. So we have to continue to develop our principals, our directors, our cabinet. And part of that is the mindset of continuous improvement. And then in terms of organizational systems, this year we put a lot of time into common language, common tools. Next school year, it's all about collective data-driven decision-making. So how are we monitoring the impact of this work? What does that look like for student outcomes? What does that look like for district outcomes? What do the qualitative stories tell us? And then how are we allocating resources? The time that we have with people, are we using that time to build capacity, or are we using that time just to talk at them? We need to use it to build capacity. We need to use it to have a sense of belonging. We need to authentically engage. Are we spending our money appropriately? Do we need to make adjustments along the way? And then space, do we create a literal space for people's voices to be heard? So those are the organizational systems that I see us moving forward to as we go into next school year. And then the last part that we, when we were at that conference that I mentioned in DC just at the beginning of this week, I'm just going to close with this. So many times people think that if you put a plan in place and you go straight, it's a very linear process, then we will be successful. And what we were reminded of at this conference is that success really looks like that squiggly line right there. That you put a plan in place, so we've got these great tools now, and then you start to go down that road, and then life happens, and then data changes, and then what we thought was going to be great just isn't working out. And we have to be courageous enough to embrace the squiggles. You're going to hear me use that term a lot because we're going to start using it. To say, you know what, yes, we put a plan in place and we thought that was the right plan, but we're going to put a pause, and we're going to put a pause earlier than we thought because we're not ready to, it's going to implode on us. And we serve 24,000 children, almost 5,000 adults. And if something's not working, it's the leadership's responsibility to say, we're going to go in a different direction. We might come back to it, maybe we're not ready yet, or we're going to make this adjustment, but we have to be willing to embrace that squiggle, because if success was as simple and linear as that first line, every school district, every in this entire nation would be achieving at its highest level. Organizational change is complex. And so part of our cultural change will be to embrace the squiggle. And I'm going to remind all of us that that's what we need to do. And I'm going to ask you to remind me to do the same. So this is really looking forward to where we're going in the next school year, to be flexible, agile, to be okay with change, knowing that we're coming all of it from the best place that we can be, and we're not infallible. People make mistakes. And so that's okay too. What we have to do is learn from those mistakes. So with that, I turn it back to the chair and welcome it up to any questions.
Any questions? Okay, seeing no questions.
Mr. Chair, just point of clarification. I think it would be helpful if we just sort of publicly clarified our timeline
That's on the agenda a little bit
Okay.
later on.
Thank you.
But we can do it now. Take the item. Yeah. We can do that item now. So that is item 3-175, to set a date and approve a process for the superintendent's evaluation. So that'll be on July 20th. And
So, I'm sorry, so you want me to go over?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have received the pieces of evidence that I said would be submitted. You received that on the 28th, so Wednesday of this week. And as in addition to receiving the evidence, also provided for you the rubric that will be used, or to use, it's that model, the rubric for the model process for superintendent evaluation. You are to individually complete your evaluation and submit that to the mayor by July 10th, ideally the 12th at the latest, right? But the 10th, so that the mayor can compile that, and then the evaluation, as you know, is done by the whole school committee, so it's one evaluation, not 7 individual ones. So you give your input, it gets compiled. That will then be presented at the July 20th committee meeting.
so motion to approve that. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Okay. We are on standing committees. The first one, Finance and Operations, met on May 22nd for 5:30. Oh, you love it. Motions to hold. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yeah.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes, the Standing Committee on Government and Employee Issues met per person on June 21st, 2023 at 5 o'clock. Member Clancy?
Thank you. Yes, the committee met on May 15th, and present was myself, Member Johnson, Vice Chair McCullough, and also from the administration was Ellen Kelly, Dr. Sipple, Will Foley, and Dr. Tatum. And the only item that we took up that night was the entire student handbook with revisions for 2023-2024. And I just want to note that we went through the entire handbook. And we were all provided with a redlined item of the changes that were made both by the team on governance and the administration team. So I'm not going to go line by line because, like I said, we were all given a copy of that, if that's okay. And like I said, throughout this year, we've made some significant policy changes, working with the administration. And we do note that we have more work to do on the handbook with policies and to make it more user-friendly for our family and our students. So that is something that we're going to be looking forward to, over the next year to get ready for the next school year. But at this point, that was it for the meeting. Like I said, we went through the entire handbook, and then we ended the meeting at 5:36. Thank you.
Motion to approve. Member Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to say that I appreciate sort of everyone's, I think, general frustration level with the handbook. I know that Member Clancy in particular has been effectively kind of pushing to have this revamped since the beginning of the year. And it got sort of piled on to about 4,000 things that the cabinet was also trying to do at the same time. And so we had to scramble. I'm going to suggest, because I think that there's a general sense both from administration and from the school committee that what we need is really just kind of an overhaul. And, I leave it to the superintendent and frankly to Member Clancy because this does remain sort of a governance purview. I would suggest that maybe what we need is actually just not to create more committees, but I think that we probably need a committee that's actually just the handbook committee, and that you all should pull together whoever you think you need in order to do that, and just have them start in August or September and get together regularly and parse out the pieces and do the revamps and come back with something new. So I'll make that in the form of a motion if it is amenable to both. In terms of what is before us, my understanding, first of all, is the calendar is on here separately, right? So if we're going to talk about the calendar, we'll talk about that later. Just a couple of things, Mr. Chair. First of all, one of the frustrations that I have had as a parent is that there's a lack of clarity in terms of enrollment, in terms of how we approach it. So one motion I would make is for us to take the section that starts with immunization, which I believe is on page 3, as well as the registration policy section, which starts on page 4, and just move it up to before the opt-out policy for English learners. And what that does is it then gives us sort of a straightforward through line in terms of the registration stuff before we get to, and here's the exceptions to the registration. And again, that's just a parental, can we at least put the stuff you gotta know right away at the beginning? The other thing is this. I know that we have had a back and forth about our voluntary transfer policy. We are, and I checked this with my colleagues, Mr. Chair, as far as we can tell, we are the only district in Massachusetts that actually is continuing to talk about de-isolation. The law is still on the books, but even Boston isn't actually talking about de-isolation anymore. And I genuinely, as someone who follows this closely, don't even know where we are, and this was even true before yesterday, in terms of our adherence to federal law and Supreme Court decisions around whether or not what we're proposing here is even legal. But it isn't what we're doing. And the thing that I do know as someone who spends a lot of time living in policy is you don't put policy on the books if it's not what you're actually doing. And so my motion, Mr. Chair, is to strike under the voluntary control transfer policy. We've got sort of, sometimes we have pages and sometimes we don't. I think this is page 4, but it might be a little later than that. To strike items 2 and 3, which is the whole section that has to deal with the majority, minority. I mean, I called Vice Chair Johnson at one point after one of these meetings and said, can you explain to me who's majority and minority? Because I can't in the Worcester Public Schools right now. Because if we strike numbers 2 and 3, we actually get into what we actually do, from what I understand. From having had a conversation with the assistant superintendent yesterday. There has to be space available. There is voluntary transfer requests with properly documented evidence. There are particular kinds of programs that we offer in particular schools. And then I do have a slight language tweak I would offer for item 6, just for clarification, okay? And again, I say this based on my understanding of sort of what school districts across Massachusetts are actually doing, and then also what our actual local practice is, okay? On item 6, what I would propose is that I would propose that we merge effectively 6 and 7. When a student changes residence, it would enter grade 6, 8, or 12. They may finish the year in that school, provided that they are a resident of Worcester and they have received the out-of-district principal's permission to remain in that school unless it is a magnet program or Worcester Technical High School with a semicolon. Those students must complete the year in the out-of-district school. And again, I'm just striving there for clarity in terms of 7. I think that was the main change that I would make. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah.
I would say I think there's probably still a couple of places, and I can turn over my notes, where I think we still are using former terminology for, I know there was a giant effort made to try to make sure that we were up to date on that, but I think there's probably a couple more, and it's just a question of having more eyes on things. Let me just make sure that I'm not missing anything, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Oh, the only other plea that I would make is if there's anything that we can do about streamlining the signature pages. We ask for like a lot of signatures at the end, and I don't know what we can do about that, but that's it. And if there's any further clarification I can offer in what I just asked, I'd be happy to offer it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We'll go with those, and I'll go one at a time, but the first one is send it to governance, establishing a committee for the policy handbook to review it. So we'll send it to your committee. You can decide what you want to do there and put a team together. So I could do a roll call. Roll call?
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yep. Yes. And the other one is to move the 2 sections in the handbook. On the policy section and on page, was it page 8 you said? So set, okay, roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. The next section was to strike sections 2 and 3 of the, sections 2 and 3 involves voluntary control transfer policy. That was that, Madam Superintendent? Yep. Okay, and I think that was it for that one. Okay, roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
No.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes. Next time was to merge items 6 and 7 for clarity. You good at that? Okay. Roll call.
Can you, what is that again? Could
Yeah,
someone
please.
clarify? And also on the voluntary transfer, I don't think, Laura, through the chair, I'd asked Member Clancy that we are only calling out tech, but we're not calling out the,
Well, we already voted that, but. let's just-
okay, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
What, 6 and 7, then
We
I
could-
don't, could someone re-clarify what that is? I don't know what
No,
it is.
that's
Sure.
Member
So
Novick's,
all of these,
position. Member Novick?
Sorry, thank you. I apologize. It actually calls out the same things that are already called out. It's an attempt, so what our policy is that if you are in a school of choice and you move out of the district, like out of Worcester, the question is, can you stay in the school that you've chosen to stay in? And the answer is you can, unless it's a magnet program or Worcester Tech. The language on 6 and 7 is like super unclear. And so what I've written down is the 6 stays almost exactly the same. It just merges in because 7 is effectively the exception to 6. The only places that you can't stay in is you've received the out-of-district principal's permission to remain in the school. The only time you cannot do that is if you are in a magnet program or in Worcester Technical High School. Those students must complete the year in the out-of-district school. So it's not a change in policy, it's an attempt at a clarification in language.
Oh, Niagara. Okay, Madam, Member Mailman?
So why are other choice programs not included in that?
Madam Superintendent? Or?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm sorry.
So someone will choose to go to, someone will choose to go to South or Doherty for particular vocational programs. How is that impacted by this change in, or clarification of policy? Why aren't those programs listed, is my question.
Through the chair, so our voluntary transfer policy is under review, and we did a little bit of work on it this year, but it wasn't ready for the handbook this year. So we will have more clarification on it for next year. The attempt is to try to streamline what we have to make sense to what we currently do. So if I understand you correctly, what you're asking is if a student attends South and they attend a Chapter 74 program at South and they move out of the district, it would essentially be allowable for the student to remain for the rest of the year if there's space, and the principal is allowing that special permission for the rest of the year. Currently, what we have in the book calls out, Worcester Tech calls out the the things that you just brought up. And so our goal for next year is to have a much clearer voluntary transfer process, so it's not such that it's arbitrary and some students get to stay and some don't. So as far as tech goes, if a student at tech moves, the expectation is that it would be up to the principal to let them finish the year, or if they move to a town outside of Worcester, it would be expected that they would enroll in the town school outside of Worcester Public.
So for next year, we'll have arbitrary policies for other schools. I guess I just don't understand why we wouldn't hold the whole damn thing until it's correct.
We've been working through it, and we felt that we have to have some sort of transfer rules and policy in place. So we're
But we
actually
did,
leaning in.
right? We did?
We do, yes. So we're leaning into what we had, but Member Novick is attempting to ensure that the policy that we have written is actually what we do. And the current practice is it does give a lot of opportunity for students to remain in the Worcester Public Schools, even if they move for the rest of the year as a special permission case. So ultimately, some students choose to want to remain to finish their education for that 1 year. And if it's in the best interest of the student, our principals really work hard to make sure that that's allowable and available to them. But there are certain times that the travel from the town to the school will interrupt the educational service to the students, so it is recommended that they now enroll in their new district school.
Thank you. Chair, is there a way to hold this policy till we can see the written?
No.
Okay.
Okay. I can't remember if we voted on that already.
I have a
Item is-
question.
Member Kamara?
Thank you. Yeah. So, I just for me, I just want to clarify one thing. So it seems like what we're doing here is that number one, the changes that Member Millman or Member Novick just put in as for us to vote on. It seems that is our first step. We're going to vote on these things and then perhaps amend those things in the handbook as a way of us having content and policy. But then the second thing that I'm hearing also is that we want to overhaul all of the contents in the handbook, and for which that we're going to be, or the governance is going to take on that tax to create, people to support that nature to overhaul this handbook while we still have in place a handbook. Is that what I'm hearing that this is happening?
Yeah, correct. So we're going to pass the handbook, then we're going to have Member Clancy, whether she wants additional members to the committee, to review it and to see if any major changes should take place and take our time, so we're not rushing this every year.
Okay, so then this, I'm back again.
Excuse me?
I'm back again. I want to ask another follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So then it seems like the amendment that we're making, that we're going to keep to have a policy. Do we know how long? Okay, so do we know how long it will take for us to overhaul this handbook? Because we don't know how long that's going to take. Correct?
Right. So we'll start in the fall probably, and so by June of next year we should have something that we're not rushing through, and so it'll probably take a few months, I would guess, right?
Okay.
Several months, depending on what changes they want to make. Member Clancy, you want to address that?
Yeah, so through the chair, I'm just trying to clarify for everybody. The voluntary control policy is being currently worked on. We do have a policy that Member Novick just made a little amendment. I mean, I know that you strike which we all had questions about that particular item, but you're just combining 6 and 7. Their verbiage that's already there, you're just making it more user-friendly so that people understand and combining those two items together. That's the current policy. There's just a little bit of change just to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah.
That policy is in governance, and we have been working with administration to get it updated. So there is a policy. What's being held in governance is the new policy that we're working on. So there is a voluntary control policy, and there really are no major changes that Ms. Novick has just made to that particular policy right now. But there will be
Right.
as we move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
All set? Hang on, Member Kamara?
Thank you. Yeah. All right, we have So my question, I think Laura was probably answering Sue's questions because that was not so what I wanted to get clarified. So it seems here now that as we have this handbook, with the because I do understand there's little changes that Member Novick mentioned here that we're clarifying the language, which I do understand that it's even for me is kind of a bit unclear here. So then we'll have that. The thing that Member Millman also mentioned, I think, so what Member Novick mentioned to add those other specialized programs as part of this here, it seems like when I heard, Dr. Morris talk, it seems that that's something that we can also do in short term so that we have something on the books while we are overhauling. Question.
I think can you repeat the question?
So my question is,
so the policy handbook is going to be reviewed by the committee over the next year.
No, I get that part. So I get what is going to be done next year. That's not where I'm at right now. I'm just at the one that we currently have that we're going to have as a policy, short-term policy while we're working on the long-term one. I'm asking the amendment that Member Millman mentioned, is that going to be also added in the short-term policy?
Well, it's not a short term, it's just a policy.
Policy.
Member Millman
Or
didn't
what you
put a
do for
motion
short
together.
term?
Well, we're merging sections 6 and 7 right now. Yeah. Madam Secretary?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I want to clarify, because I think I was just checking with Dr. Morris. Member Mailman, is your ask to remove Worcester Tech High School from being called out like that?
My ask is that we have consistency. So it sounds like we have a form over substance change that Member Novick is, and I'm not necessarily, we've spent a year on this already, and we're going to spend another year next year. Could this policy be corrected before the next June, for crying out loud?
Right.
And I don't understand why we have differences between a policy at Tech and a policy in the other vocational Chapter 74 programs. That makes no sense to me. And it doesn't seem like what's the answer, yay or nay?
Right. So
I'm not a fan of just making changes for form over substance reasons. I mean, if it's been a mess for 10 years, it's been a mess for 10 years. Why didn't we fix it last year?
in speaking with Dr. Morris and knowing what Worcester Tech does right now, we could remove the call out because they don't, so that it just says students who enroll in out-of-district magnet programs must complete the year in their out-of-district school, and leave it at that. Worcester Tech currently is not, the principal has the students stay as long as they're, you know, not living in a different state necessarily. So that could be allowable. So it's the difference between what's in print but then what's in practice. So in practice, the students are staying. They're not having to return to their out-of-district school. So if the committee chooses to do that for this year, knowing that we're still revising it and getting it to a place where it makes more sense, because even this I had to read about 5 times to understand it, so I can't imagine how difficult it is for our families. We can make that, just remove Worcester Tech High School for this year, continue to revise the policy on a grander scale, and move forward if the committee is comfortable with that.
Member Clancy? I'm good either way.
I mean, I guess if we're bringing that up at this point, then why the magnet schools? Why not let the students finish at the magnet schools, withdraw the whole line?
Is there a motion anyways on this? So, what's the motion? What choices has emerged, that's all her motion is I guess well you put it form over anything, right? So if you just want to stick with that, so the motion is just to merge those items, and we can take a roll call. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
No.
Member Kamara? Member Kamara?
I don't know what to say because I need to see what it is. I'm here, I'm looking at things, but I'm just very confused still.
Okay. Continue the roll then.
Member Kamara and Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Can I ask, I still had a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, because I have to see what it is that we're merging and what is going to be taken out. And then I guess the vote, they've already said yes, so that it doesn't really matter at this point. I would just have to see what it is. Because I know the minority majority stuff. I get that part. I guess the other item what I would also like to make a motion as we are overhauling, the handbook. I would like to add if we can maybe do like videos, like short videos, verbal videos, interactive videos about this policy so that it lives within the media and not just a written book. And that can be placed on our website. I don't know, it can be whatever else, but I just want to, suggest that we also make this handbook into like a virtual kind of thing that, parents can, or students can just go and watch for easy access. That's all.
Okay. Okay, so we all set then? Approve of the amendments? Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay. I consider the approval of the UMass mini grant to teachers and staff in the North Quadrant schools to enrich the classroom school experience of students in the amount of $34,186.84. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connell-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes, to approve the adjusted academic calendars based on the new union contracts. Recommendation is to approve. Member Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did double check our policy, and we are required to approve the calendar annually. So the first motion I'm going to make is that we recommit 24 and 25 and 25 and 26 for the following reason. As the superintendent noted in both her goals and also in the outcomes, one of the things that both the administration and the school committee have been working, I think, pretty hard to do is to try to make sure that we involve the people who things are most going to affect in the decision-making process. And I understand that we have to, it's June 30th, have to have a school calendar for next year. But I'm concerned that we have changed the school calendar without talking to anyone. I opened up the school calendar, and as a parent, my first response was, oh my God, there's these 2 random Tuesdays where suddenly there's no school, which I guess shows that I'm not really paying that much attention to the electoral calendar, which may be a different problem. But that's what it's going to feel like, I think, to a lot of parents, is that they're going to get this calendar. Maybe they're going to look when it comes home in August. Maybe they're not. But suddenly there's going to be this November Tuesday where there's no school, where no one was expecting it. I understand the arguments. I had them at my dinner table again last night with one of the city's election wardens. I'm not going to get into the pros and cons of that. But I continue to be concerned that we haven't actually done, we do have an item, I know, in governance, the work around what days do we have school? What days do we not have school? What do we recognize? What do we not recognize? Yom Kippur is a school day. Eid continues to be a school day. But we still continue, though we never say that that's what it is, to have Good Friday off. Not really cool. So I will support the calendar. I will note to call to the attention of the administration that while we are taking the November 7th election off, we do have a preliminary election for the city on September 5th. And if the notion here is that we are going to be having voting in the schools and also the notion that we aren't going to have children in the school, we are going to actually have those two things happen together on September 5th. Again, not opining on either of those. But I'm asking that we recommit the other two. I know that we're bringing in leadership in terms of the Office of Diversity. We obviously have leadership in terms of the family and community engagement. I'm going to ask that we take a stronger look at the 24-25 and the 25-26 calendars. So motion to approve 23-24, but recommit the other two, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll take those collectively. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Where are we here? No. Say date, we already did that. To approve the job description, the communication specialist, along with filing items 3-168 and 3-169. We can take those collectively. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay. So member motions to adjourn. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Roll call. Is that the end of the, is that the last item? I believe it was.
Yep.
Is this for adjournment?
Yeah.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member O'Connor-Novick?
Yes.
Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes.